He looked me in the eyes, his fingers trembling as he laid down the final card. "I'm sorry, Sophie," he whispered. I didn't know then that those words would tear my life apart. The neon lights of Reno flickered through the grimy motel window, casting shadows that danced across the walls like ghosts. I sat on the edge of a sagging bed, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I'm 25, my auburn hair falls in waves over my shoulders, and my eyes burn with a mix of fear and fury. Across from me, my boyfriend, Ethan Moore, slouched in a chair, his face pale as chalk and glistening with sweat. The room reeked of cheap beer, cigarettes, and something worse, desperation. It all started with one reckless night. Casinos, flashing lights, the clink of coins in slot machines. Ethan convinced me it would be fun, that he had a feeling about a big win. I followed him, blinded by his smile and the promises he tossed out like candy. We ended up in an underground poker game, a dark back room, where the air was thick with smoke and tension. I didn't want to be there, but Ethan insisted. And now the game was over. He'd lost everything, his car, our savings, and still unbelievable to me, "You're kidding." My voice shook, but I tried to hold it together. "You bet me, Ethan? Like I'm something?" He wouldn't look at me. His eyes were glued to the table, where the cards lay scattered. "It was a bluff, Sophie. I thought I'd win. I didn't think. I shot to my feet, my hands clenching into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. Who even bets their girlfriend in a card game? "Who are you, Ethan?" The man across the table, a hulking figure named Roy Keller, smirked. He was in his 40s, with a shaved head and a scar snaking across his cheek. His voice was low, calm, but all the more chilling for it. "A deal's a deal, sweetheart. Your boy lost. Now you're mine for the night." My stomach churned. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Roy leaned back in his chair, his eyes glinting like a predator's. "Oh, you will, unless you want me to collect on Ethan's other debts. Trust me, you don't want to see what happens when I don't get paid." I turned to Ethan, hoping he'd say something, do something, but he just raised his eyes to me, full of pathetic pleading. "Sophie, just go with him. It's only one night. He won't hurt you. Right, Roy?" Roy's laugh was a rough, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. "Hurt her? Nah, I just want some company. A little conversation, maybe a dance." His gaze slid over me, and I felt everything inside me tighten. My mind was racing. I could try to run, but where? We were in a seedy part of Reno, miles from anyone who could help. My phone had died hours ago. My wallet held a couple of bucks and a coffee shop receipt. And Ethan, my Ethan, who I thought was my protector, sat there, head bowed, like a beaten dog. I was trapped. "Fine," I said at last, my voice cold as ice. "One night. But if you touch me, Roy, I'll make you regret the day you were born." He grinned, flashing a gold tooth. "That's the spirit." The drive to Roy's place was silent. I sat in the passenger seat of his black SUV, arms crossed, staring out at the dark desert stretching beyond the window. My head was a storm of thoughts. How did I get here? Why did I let Ethan drag me into this? And what, for the love of everything, did Roy want from me? His place was a sprawling ranch house on the edge of town, surrounded by cacti and piles of rusted junk. Inside was even worse: musty velvet curtains, a leopard print couch, and a chandelier that looked like it had survived an earthquake. Roy poured himself a glass of bourbon and offered me one. "I don't drink with creeps," I snapped. He chuckled, like I'd said something cute. "Suit yourself. Sit down. Let's talk." "I'd rather stand." He shrugged and flopped onto the couch, swirling his glass. "You're fiery. I like that. Ethan doesn't deserve you. Don't act like you know me," I said, barely holding back my anger. "What do you want? You won me in some stupid game. Now what? You gonna make me clean your house? Cook you steaks?" His smile faded, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something almost human. "You think I'm a monster, don't you? Maybe I am, but I'm not what you think. I don't want you to clean or cook. I just wanted to see if Ethan would do it. If he'd really bet you." I frowned, my stomach twisting tighter. What are you talking about? Roy took a swig of bourbon, his gaze distant. I've seen guys like him my whole life. Weak, selfish. They'll sell out anyone, friends, family, their girl, for a shot at winning. I wanted to see how far he'd go, and he went all the way. My hands trembled. So this was some kind of test? And I'm just a pawn in your game? Not exactly. He set his glass down. I saw you in the casino, Sophie. You're not like him. You've got spark, strength. I figured if I got you away from him, maybe you'd see it too. I stared at him, my thoughts buzzing like a swarm of bees. Was this a joke? A manipulation? Or did he actually believe what he was saying? You expect me to thank you? You're no better than he is. Maybe not, he said quietly. But at least I'm honest about it. For the next few hours, I stayed on edge, waiting for him to make a move. Grab me, try something worse. But he didn't touch me. He just talked. He told me about his life, the shady deals he'd made, the mistakes he couldn't undo. He talked about his sister Emily, who died at 16 from an illness their family couldn't afford to treat. He said he'd been running from that pain ever since, hiding behind money, power, control. It was strange. I didn't trust him, not a single word, but his stories made me think, not about him, but about me, about Ethan, about how I'd let myself get sucked into his world, ignoring all the red flags. I remembered how he'd promised me the stars, but every time, he dragged us deeper into a hole. Closer to midnight, Roy led me to the backyard. Under a starry sky stood an old, dusty pickup truck. This was her dream, he said, nodding at the truck. Emily wanted to drive to California, become an actress. I promised I'd take her, but I didn't make it in time. I stayed silent. What could I say? This man who'd won me in a card game was standing here, bearing his grief. It didn't make him a good person, but it made him more than just a monster. When the clock struck 4 in the morning, he offered me a guest room. No strings, he added, raising his hands. I refused. I'll stay here, I said, pointing to the couch. I wasn't going to sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about Ethan, about how I'd excused his lies, his gambling, his weakness. I loved him, or maybe I loved who I thought he was, but now I saw the truth. At dawn, Roy drove me back to the motel. You're free, he said as I stepped out of the SUV, but take some advice, ditch that loser. He'll destroy you. I didn't answer. I walked into the room where Ethan was sprawled across the bed, an empty vodka bottle on the floor. I stood over him, my chest tight with anger, sadness, and something else, relief. Roy, that awful man, was right. Ethan was weak, and I'd been blind. I grabbed my bag and started throwing things in. Jeans, a sweater, my phone charger. Ethan stirred, blinking groggily. Sophie, you're back. I told you it'd be fine. Fine? My voice shook with rage. You bet me, Ethan. You gambled me like I was your property. He sat up, his face confused. I was desperate, Sophie. I didn't mean it. You know I love you. Love? I laughed and it was bitter as poison. You love yourself. I'm done with you. Sophie, wait. Please. I didn't wait. I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked out. The sun stung my eyes. The air smelled of dust and freedom. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. I didn't belong to Ethan anymore, and I never would. I made it to a roadside diner on the edge of Reno. I sat at the counter, ordered a coffee, and watched a couple of trucks rumble down the highway. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, set a mug in front of me. Rough night, honey? She asked. That's putting it mildly, I said, forcing a smile. I sat there, replaying everything that had happened. I'd been humiliated, betrayed, but I'd survived. I felt stronger than ever. Roy, for all his darkness, had made me see what I'd been ignoring. I deserved better. Not Ethan, not his empty promises, but a life I could build for myself. I thought back to how I met Ethan. It was in Portland, in a dimly lit bar with live music. He was charming, with dimples and stories of adventures he probably never had. I fell for his energy, for how he made me laugh. But now I saw he was just a shell, a dreamer who never made his dreams real. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You're stronger than you think. Don't look back. I knew it was Roy. I deleted it, but his words lingered in my mind. I finished my coffee, left a few bucks on the counter, and stepped out into the parking lot. The sun was scorching, but I felt a thrill of excitement. I could go back to Oregon, to my mom, to a familiar life, or I could take a risk, head to Seattle, San Francisco, anywhere. I remembered how I dreamed of opening my own coffee shop, a cozy place with wooden tables and the smell of fresh brews. Ethan had laughed at that dream, called it cute, but it was mine. I walked to the bus stop, my steps firm. The road ahead was unknown, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like it belonged to me. Months passed. I settled in Seattle, got a job at a downtown coffee shop. Every night, I studied how to run a business, how to budget, how to turn a dream into reality. Ethan texted me a few times, apologizing, promising to change. I blocked every number. The pain of his betrayal hadn't faded, but it no longer defined me. One evening, as I locked up the coffee shop, I spotted a flyer on the bulletin board. Entrepreneurship courses for women. I jotted down the address and smiled. It was a small step, but it felt like a beginning. I knew there was still a lot of work ahead, but I was ready. I'd been lost in a bet, but I'd found something more valuable, myself. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone take that away.
If my story of breaking free from betrayal and reclaiming my life has you reflecting or even shaking your head in disbelief, I hope it's lit a spark in you. Have you ever had a moment where you had to choose yourself? Maybe you walked away from a toxic situation or stood tall when everything was stacked against you. I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments and let's keep this conversation going. And if you enjoyed my story, give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one.